I'm Adam Steinfurt. This is the Sheets Help YouTube channel. So between these videos and the website, sheetshelp.com, you should be able to learn everything you need to know about Google Sheets. And to work on that promise, let's go over how to average amounts in a spreadsheet by day of the week. And we want to write out the day of the week and then the corresponding averages. So first we will do this in probably what I would call the easy way, which is a pivot table. So let's come over to a copy that I have of this sheet, and we'll go through the steps to put the averages into a pivot table. So we will say insert pivot table, and you get this pop-up window that's asking what data it should summarize. So we will click on select data range, and we'll go from A1 all the way down to A1001. So this is a pretty big table of data that it needs to sort through. And we'll say, just put this on the existing sheet. So we want the pivot table right here where we can see it. Let's say in E2. We'll hit create, and it inserts a blank pivot table. Now, usually these pivot tables can look at just one source of data. In this case, if you come over here and click, it's going to remind you that it's looking at the table in A1 through C1001. If you have more than one table that you're wanting to summarize, you can use the OmniPivot add-on, which will combine multiple sources of data. I'll put a link to that in the video right now if you want to check that out. But let's just use this one table for this video. And we will say we want the days of the week here, right? So in the rows, let's add date. Okay. And then we'll right click on that because Google Sheets has a built-in function that I couldn't do this without this functionality. And we'll go to create pivot date group. That's the mouthful of words that it uses, and we will select day of the week. All right, so that already gets us really far. It saves a ton of work. And now all we need to do is add the amounts in here and tell it what to do with the amounts. So we will say values, I should say, instead of amounts. Values, so we want the price, but it defaults to sum as the way to summarize them. We want the average instead. So just click on the drop down near sum, change it to average, and there we go. Pretty easy, right? So we have the average per day of the week from this table. So the next thing that we're going to do is use a function instead of a pivot table. So pivot tables are great for lots of things. But the query function is sort of its sister function, if you will. And it does a lot of the same things, but in a very different way because it does them with a written function. And this function calls in the SQL language, programming language. So we won't dive too far into the actual language itself, but we will talk about it a bit to show you how it works. And then I'll link to a video more about the query function. But let's do this the easy way. So if you've copied this worksheet, you can do this too. We'll go over to our example and we will copy what we did. Let's just grab all of this. All right, so paste it in. So now we have a working function and it's doing the same thing. So it's outputting these days of the week written out nice like that instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the corresponding values, spot check some of these. Sunday was 46,296. Here it is the same. So we've done this with the query function. Let's double click and talk about what it's doing. So we've said you need you to do a query on A1 through C1001. So that's the same table. And then you always type out the word select to tell it what to return. And then we'll talk about a few of these clauses that we're using that probably don't look familiar to you at all because they're in the SQL language and not typical spreadsheet language. So I'll link to a reference so you can see more of these in case you want to do it by month or a different function than average, etc. But what we're saying here, you can kind of read these in just by going through them. So we're saying day of the week, right? And then we're saying average, and group it by day of the week, and then label it. So we have day and sum here as the labels. And then we're saying also output the day as the whole word. That's what 4Ds means. I just knew that because I looked it up. And then output the average in this format. So you can specify the format. I put a US dollar currency symbol on it. I even put the comma in there. All right, so as you can see, even just by looking at this, the query function is very flexible because you can change any of this, and you can even tell it if there is a header on the data. All right, so for more information about the query function, I've linked to a video about it that you can watch right here. I'm Adam Steinfurt. Thanks for watching.